everyone? Welcome to KGW's 3-on-3 Blazers. My name is Orlando Sanchez, Jared Cowley on my right, Nate Hanson on my left, and the one and only Max Barr on the ones and twos. Portland Trail Blazers, a pretty interesting week. Not one that we predicted would happen.
Nope.
You know, they split with the Jazz and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Just your takeaways from the week that was in the land of Rip City.
Well, I'm just going to say that before we started recording the podcast, Nate and I had a riveting conversation about Weezer.
Yes.
And I just hope that our podcast conversation is quite as interesting as that was.
Maybe we should do our own separate 3-on-3 Weezer podcast.
It's heavy, man. I mean,
bonus Weezer episode.
You guys should let it rip.
Back to the
Bring us
Blazers,
back on track. That only took 20 seconds, so we're
I tried.
off the deep end.
Nobody wants to hear us talk about Weezer, I guess.
Ride or die.
Yeah, so the Jazz win was completely unexpected. I think it was their best win of the season because the Jazz were playing so well. Going into Utah, into Salt Lake City, and getting a win is impossible almost any time. And just the way the Blazers won, the way they got under the skin of the Jazz, especially Rudy Gobert, the way Nurkic played, that was one of the best wins of the season. And I'm not that down about the OKC game. I wasn't, going and trading players on 2K after that game. I was fine because that's a tough turnaround. Like, they went into Salt Lake City. It was kind of a late game. That was the first big snow of the year in Salt Lake City. They got out of there late. They got into OKC, very early in the morning, very late. And so, second game of a road back-to-back. You're playing a very good team in OKC that causes matchup problems for the Blazers. And that game was really competitive and really interesting and exciting until about the last 5 or 6 minutes. And watching it, I just felt the Blazers got tired. And you saw it especially on defense. They just started reaching. They stopped playing defense with their feet. They stopped moving, and they just started reaching. And that was just the game. So I'm happy with the way the Blazers are playing right now. I wasn't that upset about the OKC loss, and they've got a couple of easy games coming up. So,
what do you think, Nate?
I mean, I think you have to feel good about the week. Me and you, Orlando, last week picked the Blazers to drop both those games to the Jazz and the Thunder. Jared had it the wrong way. He did pick a split, but he still got both games wrong. He thought they were going to lose to the Jazz and beat the Thunder.
I was way off.
Just a little.
Rightfully so. The Jazz have owned them this season.
And they've been playing great.
But you got to feel good about the week. I mean, you get a road split on that road trip. We were kind of a little bit suspect going into it because the previous road back-to-back against Denver and Sacramento, they didn't get any wins on that 2-game stretch. And so at least they picked up a win against a good team. They took care of business at home against the Pelicans before that. And now they get 2 opponents who they should dominate in this upcoming week. So took care of business.
And then another matchup with the Jazz. So yeah.
You mentioned the chippiness in Utah, man. I was such a fan of what happened at Oklahoma City.
Oh, that
and
was
just
fun.
The chippiness, the pettiness. Like, I was here for all of that.
Yeah.
It was such a good time to see that. Whether it was Russell Westbrook and Damian Lillard exchanging pleasantries or Yusuf Nurkic getting involved. I thought it was a lot of fun, even after the game when, Westbrook was in the media scrum and said he didn't want to talk about that clown, referring to Yusuf Nurkic, and Nurkic replying by calling him Westbrick. And the next level with Joel Embiid liking said tweet from Yusuf Nurkic.
I didn't see that.
Yes,
that's great.
Yes, and so I'm here for all the pettiness, and when it involves Russell Westbrook, I just thought it was a game within a game, and it made it a little more fun. I'm just wondering if the Blazers can ever, win a game where they trail after 3 quarters.
I don't know.
Which is mind-blowing to have
keep
that.
betting on that. Take that money.
Yeah.
As long as they keep winning all the games that they go into the fourth quarter leading, I guess it's okay. It kind of evens out.
So the Blazers, they're now 29-20. They're 4th place in the Western Conference. They've won 9 out of their past 13 games. They get ready for the Phoenix Suns tonight. And Damian Lillard was questionable on the latest injury report, but multiple reporters, including Joe Freeman at the Oregonian, say that Damian Lillard says he's going to play, so this is kind of a non-story. But whenever Damian Lillard's name pops up on the injury list, you're kind of taken aback by it. So let's get right down to it. 3 questions, 3 answers, because there's 3 of us. You can catch our responses on kgw.com, so check that out, please. And this topic, Jared is so pumped to talk about this.
Yes. Had to twist his arm to get this in here.
You really did, Nate.
I sold him, though, man. I sold him.
We had about a 30-minute conversation yesterday convincing me that we needed to talk about Carmelo Anthony. So
It's the circle of life. It only took us a year and a half to get back to this point, but here we are.
Yeah, for the ultimate loyal 3-on-3 listeners, the very first conversation we ever had on Blazers 3-on-3, because we started this before last season, the very first conversation we had was about Carmelo Anthony. And here we are, about 17 months later or so, doing it again.
coming
Nothing's
back full
changed.
circle.
Yep, he's basically on the market, 34 years old. Once again, the Blazers get caught up in this conversation. You can blame, I guess, Tracy McGrady
Yep.
Yeah.
for saying that he'd be a great fit next to Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum.
The sports books in Vegas blame
Man,
them as well.
The second best odds behind the Lakers
Yep.
to land Carmelo Anthony. Lil B, the bass god, giving a blessing. And Evan Turner saying that, agreeing that brighter days are ahead. So, guys, let's get down to it. Do you think Carmelo Anthony will end up on the Blazers roster this season? And question number 2, do you side with McGrady or that he would be a great fit here in Rip City?
Sure, I'll take the lead on this one. By the way, since we're talking about Little B, the bass god, Max has had direct conversation with
You've
the
gotta be
bass
kidding
god
me.
before.
Really?
This is a true fact. Max enlightened them.
It's true, but it's a long story. We'll get into it later.
Yes.
Wow.
But Max is 100 with the bass god. Bless him.
Wow. Well, you get a blessing from the bass god.
This podcast, by the transitive property of Lil B
Is
Blessings,
blessed.
is blessed by the bass god.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
There
How
we
did
go.
bury the lead on this?
5 guys. 5-star review on iTunes.
What do I do every single week? I extol the virtues of Max Barr. I talk about how much of a star he is. This is just more evidence of how
man.
amazing
This
Max
is a
Barr
lot
is.
to take in,
I know.
guys.
Jared's way more excited about this than he was Carmelo Anthony when I brought it
That's
up
right.
yesterday.
Wow.
Change the topic.
Okay.
Let's get
All
to
about
Carmelo.
Max Barr.
So let's get to Carmelo Anthony. So the first question of this is, will he end up on the Blazers roster? And my answer to that is the same as it was a year and a half ago. The answer is no, I don't think he will end up on the Blazers roster. The second question of this is, do you side with McGrady in that Carmelo would be a great fit with the Blazers? A year and a half ago, my answer to that was yes. And that Blazers fans should be, quote, so excited that they could potentially have Carmelo be with C.J. McCollum, Damian Lillard, and Yusuf Nurkic. And my thinking a year and a half ago was that Carmelo had come to this realization that in order to win a championship, he's going to have to take a secondary role on the team. Mm-hmm. He can't be a volume shooter the way he was with the Knicks, and he's got to do some other things other than just score. But now, we saw with OKC last year, and with Houston for about a month this season, he has shown no interest in doing that. So this go-around, I disagree with Tracy McGrady in that he would be a quote-unquote great fit for the Blazers. Damian Lillard recently talked with Jason Quick kind of about trades and his role in what players should come to Portland and whatnot. And Lillard, for the most part, told Quick he stays out of it.
Yeah.
He lets Olshey take care of that. That's his job. Lillard's job is to lead the players that are on his team. But one thing he talked about in that conversation was that while Portland doesn't have the talent that some of the top teams in the West do, they do have chemistry that some of those teams don't do because they haven't had so many changing faces on this roster over the past 3 years. And he said at some point that's going to mean something for them. You have to find a different way to beat these top teams. And he thinks their togetherness and chemistry, if the talent isn't too lopsided, could be in favor of the Blazers. So if chemistry is that important to Damian Lillard, bringing Carmelo Anthony in, I don't think helps the team chemistry at all. And he's not a player who would undoubtedly make the Blazers better. And so for those reasons, I do not think he's a great fit here in Portland.
So when all this started, I wasn't, when I saw the Tracy McGrady stuff, I wasn't that worried. That's just McGrady speculating, doesn't matter. When I saw the odds, I wasn't too shook by that because first, they're a distant second to the Lakers on those odds. And then again, I mean, it makes sense if you're Vegas and you're coming up with odds. You know that Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum recruited him, in the summer of 2017. They have a history, so that makes sense that they'd be listed, among the top in odds. But then when I saw the tweet from Lil B, the based god, blessing the Blazers and blessing Carmelo, and then Evan Turner blessing that tweet, it gave me a little bit of consternation. And Max Barr talked me down a little bit. He said that he believes that Evan Turner was responding to the blessing of the Blazers and not necessarily the connection that you might make between Carmelo being blessed and the Blazers being blessed in the same tweet. So if that's true, I'm good. That makes me feel better. I'm not a fan of the idea of Carmelo Anthony coming to the Blazers.
This is so amazing.
I'm really, really not.
What did we do to get this treat
I don't
today?
know. Who would have thought last week Jared would be quoting the bass guy?
I love this so much.
Keep going, Jared.
All right. So, first of all, is he a good fit? I don't think so. I think he'd be willing to come off the bench wherever he goes next. I mean, he has to have been humbled somewhat by what's happened in the past few months. And I think that he did come off the bench for the Rockets, and he didn't really push back against it too much. So I think that he'd come off the bench. So I'm not worried. I'm also not worried about his fit in the locker room. I haven't seen that much about him actually being a bad teammate or someone that teammates don't like. I think that he'd come in and fit in just fine. It's more his fit on the court that concerns me. Now, he might provide scoring punch off the bench, which is what Tracy McGrady talked about, that they need that. But the thing is, his defense is so bad, it would just crater the defensive performance of the Blazers reserves unit. And even though he'd provide a scoring punch, it would be a very inefficient jab.
Yeah.
He's not an efficient scorer. He shot 40% last season from the field, 41% this season in limited time with the Rockets, just 33% from three. He operates in isolation. He's a ball stopper. He over dribbles. You think about the reserve unit for the Blazers especially, it's all built on flow and ball movement and passing the ball around and getting open shots for people. And Carmelo Anthony does not fit into that at all. So I don't think he's a good fit, and I don't think I'm going to put my trust in the Blazers front office that they are not looking at Carmelo Anthony as an answer, the answer, whatever. And I don't think they're going to go after him, and I'm really hoping that they don't, because I don't think that's what the Blazers need. I don't think that he'd make them better.
All across the board, it's a clean sweep. I also disagree.
Changing of the tide from a year and a half ago, man.
At that time, it made a lot of sense.
We were all enthusiastic. I mean, Jared was less enthusiastic, but he was on board with it. Me and you were all about it.
Yeah, I was a fan of this idea. Yeah. I thought they needed a guy, still do. It's just that Melo is no longer that guy.
That type of player.
We have enough evidence. There's enough of a track record that he's not the right fit for this team. Yeah. And the thing that I never understood though was this: he's toxic. Yeah. He's this bad seed. Like, I got a lot of that recently, and from all accounts, from what we hear, is that he's a good teammate. Not an issue in the locker room. It just goes back to your point, Jared, that on the court, the trade-off that you get for 14 points a game or 15 points a game versus being a notoriously bad defender, it doesn't add up. It's not worth that type of risk, whereas maybe a year and a half ago you thought Carmelo's probably still got a lot of that juice left in the tank. Maybe you're getting 20 points out of him, and you're willing to take a risk on the defensive end. I'm with you. I'm hoping that Blazers brass is not...
Yeah, just stay away.
In that,
stay away. He was a huge detriment for Oklahoma City in a playoff series last year against the Jazz. In the 194 minutes that Carmelo played in that series, the Thunder outscored by 58 points and had a net rating of minus 12.6. In the 94 minutes he was on the bench, the Thunder outscored the Jazz by 32 points at a net rating of plus 18.1. That is a massive swing for just one player. He was not an asset for the Thunder last year in the playoffs. He was a liability, and I think he'd be a liability if he came to Portland as well.
Yeah. All right, let's move on then. We're all in agreement.
Please move on, Blazers front office too.
I think
Thank you, Base God.
Yes. Great follow-up there, man. So, number 2, All-Star game quickly approaching. Starters for both conferences, they'll be announced tonight. The reserves will be announced January 31st. The draft, February 7th. That should be a lot of fun.
That should be fun.
And
Is that televised this year?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they dropped the ball
Who's
last
going to
year
be the
on it.
last pick? That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, that should be a good question. Let's focus on the West. Who are your 5 All-Star starters? Who are your reserves? And finally, to relate this back to the Blazers, how close was Yusuf Nurkic in consideration on your guys' rosters?
Start us off, Jared.
I'll start this one off. Okay, so my starters, we'll just run through these. At the guard positions, I don't think it's a question.
No.
I think it's Steph Curry and James Harden. At center, I'm taking Nikola Jokic. I think that he deserves that spot because of how phenomenal he's been and also the way he's lifted Denver to new heights. And then at the forward positions, I actually have Paul George and Kevin Durant. So who you don't see in my starting lineup is LeBron James or Anthony Davis. Yep. And the reason I chose Paul George and Kevin Durant over those two is because LeBron James has missed 14 games. Mm-hmm. So that was a deciding point for me. And then for Anthony Davis, it's because his team is 4 games under 500. I think if you're an all-star starter and if you're as good as Anthony Davis is, there's no excuse for your team to be that bad. I don't care that a lot of people talk about how he doesn't have a lot of talent around him. For one, I disagree with that.
Yeah, he does.
And 2, you're Anthony Davis. There's no reason your team should be under 500. So I'm still going to put him on the All-Star team, but he doesn't get a starting position. So my reserves are LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Damian Lillard, Rudy Gobert, and Karl Anthony Towns. Those are my locks for reserves. My last 2 come down to Russell Westbrook and LaMarcus Aldridge.
Okay.
Did I consider Yusuf Nurkic? I really, really did.
Oh, man.
So I want to go through all of my snubs here because picking the West is crazy.
Yeah,
difficult.
It is.
These are all the guys who are having all-star caliber seasons who are not getting on the team. Clay, in no particular order. Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Jamal Murray, Steven Adams, Yusuf Nurkic, DeMar DeRozan, Donovan Mitchell, Danilo Gallinari, Tobias Harris, De'Aaron Fox, Drew Holiday, Luka Doncic, how is it? Doncic. Marcus Gasol, Mike Conley, Clint Capella, who's injured, and Devin Booker.
Yeah.
It's like 16 players.
Yeah, that's a lot of players.
And they're all
All
worthy
worthy.
of all-star consideration. So I actually considered Yusuf for that last spot. He's 12th in real plus minus, 3rd in defensive real plus minus. I mean, that's not just among centers. That's in the NBA. He's 21st in PER. Like, advanced statistics, he's better than most. He's better than LaMarcus Aldridge. He's better than most of the people that he'd be competing for that last spot. The reason I gave it to LaMarcus Aldridge is because I think the Spurs deserve a representative. They're better than I thought they'd be. They've really come on strong. So LaMarcus is having a good season. I also don't think that Nurkic is quite ready to be an all-star because he's still not cracking 30 minutes of playing time. I think that if you're an all-star, you should be the kind of player that your coach cannot take you off the court. And it's kind of getting that way now, but it's not quite there. So I think if Nurkic continues to play the way he's playing now, if he continues to get more minutes, that'll boost his stats up a little bit more. I think he could be an all-star next season. I think he's having an all-star caliber season. He's just not quite there.
Well, our starters, we only have one different starter, and it was the one you mainly pointed out. My backcourt's the same as yours, Stephen Curry, James Harden. My front court players, Kevin Durant, Paul George, and I have Anthony Davis in.
At center.
And this may be more of a, give him a nod to what he's done. He's still been great this year as
phenomenal.
well.
Yeah.
But for me, it came down to Jokic has had a really nice season, but if I'm an opponent, I fear Anthony Davis more than I fear Nikola Jokic. And so for me, I put Anthony Davis in that starting 5. In the reserves, I'm with you on LeBron, why you don't put him as a starter because of the time he's missed. If he stayed healthy the entire time, it would be really tough to pick the front court players because that's who he would have been among. Jokic is also a reserve, along with Lillard, obviously. Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert I have in as well. The last 2 that I'm going to put in are Luka Doncic and Russell Westbrook.
Okay.
And Doncic, because for a lot of these players, the All-Star game is about who the best player was. But the All-Star game is also a fan show.
Yeah.
And he has been a standout rookie who has been the buzz of the NBA this year. And I want to see him in the game with the best players. And his numbers, while they may fall a little bit short, they're not drastically short of All-Star numbers. And he's had a huge impact on the Mavericks this year. So I want to see him in that game. So I've given him the nod. And then Russell Westbrook, I mean, Nurkic hasn't been wrong about Westbrook. I mean, he's really struggled shooting the ball this year. But he's still averaging a triple-double. And it doesn't feel like it could be an all-star game if he's not there.
Yeah.
You know? And so I'm going to give him the nod. The first guy I had out was Aldridge. And I wavered on that because I agree with you. The Spurs are better than we anticipated they would be. And Aldridge has had another really good season. And maybe it's a penalty, I think, of just his personality, his style of play, and the fact that he plays for the Spurs.
Yep.
All of those things are considered boring across the NBA, as opposed to guys like the last two I put in, Westbrook and Doncic, who are electrifying and always in the headlines, and you want to see those guys play. So Aldridge, he may deserve it, but if I had to choose 12, he would be the first guy out.
I'm going to tell you the one thing that shocked me about your list.
Yeah.
No Clay.
No. No, that was tough.
The GOAT.
The GOAT, yeah, that was tough.
I'm stunned, dude.
This is the first year of his career. He's shooting below 40% from three. Yeah. And it feels like
he doesn't have to dribble to get buckets.
I know, well, that is nice. But it also feels like with Clay, he's had these standout games, a handful of them. But he hasn't been consistently as good as he's been in the past. And the Warriors haven't been as good this year, which is why you don't see the consideration for him and Draymond that I think we saw in the past. The Warriors were so good. You felt those guys need to be on the All-Star team.
The bar has kind of changed for them, even though they're in first place.
Yeah, it's a little different, but they haven't been as dominant so far this season as they've been in the past, and Clay hasn't been as consistent and shot the ball as well. So, as much as that pains me, I'm gonna drop him out. Hopefully, he'll win that 3-point shooting contest.
I think he's been inconsistent on defense this year as well. You still see it when he locks down. He's still a great defender, but he doesn't do it consistently like he has in the past.
LaMarcus was like my guy that was just the borderline. Yeah. Is he in, is he out? And Nate, I think you and I were seeing eye to eye on the bench, on the reserves. But I'll start with my starters: Harden, Curry, Kevin Durant. And I kind of mixed and matched with what you guys have, basically, because I went with Anthony Davis. I battled with that one. But I was just like, I can't imagine not having Anthony Davis. Like, he's so... Like, that was harder for me than to leave LeBron off the starting rotation.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, the LeBron reasoning is simple. It's like, you've missed 30% of your games. Yeah. Like, you're still an all-star. You're just not going to be a starter this time around. I also went with Jokic.
There we go.
I think just for the reasons that you explained, Jared, what he's been able to do to lift the Nuggets to places I don't think most people would have predicted when the year started. He does it all, and I think that he's earned this. But Paul George was another one for me that I was like, he deserves to be a starter. And it just goes back to your point with how loaded the Western Conference is. But what Paul George has been the man for Oklahoma City and has helped elevate them into third place in the West as well.
No matter how you slice it, one or two or three players who are deserving of being starters aren't going to be starters. If Steph Curry and James Harden weren't among the best guards ever to play the game, Damian Lillard would be a starter in the All-Star game.
Yeah. You would be making...
Except for he won it because nobody votes for him. Dumb fans.
He needs to get the base god's blessing.
That's right.
We're getting closer to that storyline with Damian Lillard. We have it in our back pocket, us folks in the media. Russell Westbrook, I also put him on there. Yeah. I know that he's Westbrook this season, but he's been able to defer to George and been able to maximize in other areas, not necessarily around shooting the three. And I mean, free throws have been bad too for him, but he's still triple-double machine. I mean, and so for that, I think that he deserves to be on there. For me, Yusuf Nurkic, the one thing I'll say is that he's on his way.
Yeah.
What he's been able to do the second half of the first half of the season has been impressive. Yeah. And the absurd argument that you made at the beginning of the year, like now is
Not
becoming
so absurd.
realistic.
We haven't even mentioned C.J. McCollum. Jared
No.
listed about 25 to 30 guys in
Right.
the Western Conference. And
Right.
he did not mention C.J. McCollum.
Right.
I purposefully left him off. He
No,
does
he
not have
doesn't.
an all-star
No, he
caliber
hasn't.
season.
Yeah, and Nurkic is on his way. If this pace continues, then I think it is a legitimate consideration for me.
I'm right there with you. This go around, I didn't really consider him because
Mm-hmm.
of the fact that up until December he didn't play at all like an all-star.
Mm-hmm.
But if he continues the strong play we've seen over the last month and a half and continues that through next year, then I think he will be in consideration for an all-star
Definitely
spot.
a compliment for
Absolutely.
what Nurkic has been able to
Yeah,
do so
for
far.
sure.
All right, it's prediction time where Nate is always right.
Hey, me and you took the lead in this sucker.
Is that
over
right?
Jared.
I did.
Yeah,
I dropped
because-
a game behind you
Ooh.
guys.
because Jared picked. He got the Jazz Thunder mixed up,
Yeah.
so he got
almost
penalized
had it.
twice.
I was close.
All right, so this week, as you mentioned, Nate, looks pretty appetizing.
Yeah, at least the
appealing for
start
first,
of it. Yeah.
the first two games. So here's what they have on the horizon tonight against the Suns, Saturday at home versus the Hawks, and Wednesday at home versus the Jazz. Which games do the Blazers win? Which games do the Blazers lose?
Well, let's just not even talk about the
Nah.
first two. We picked them.
We
to
all
beat-
have wins for Suns and Hawks, right?
Yes,
against the
correct.
Suns and
That's
Hawks.
done.
So the big game this week is the one on Wednesday
That's the one
against
to
the
talk about,
Jazz.
yep.
It's the fourth meeting, the final meeting between these two division rivals, I guess you could say. And although Portland just beat Utah in Utah, I'm going to pick the Jazz to come into Portland as they did in December
Ooh.
and beat the Blazers. The Jazz, in the first half of that game against the Blazers, they controlled, in the most recent game, they controlled the first half against Portland. It took Yusuf Nurkic breaking out, getting the better of Gobert, having a 17-point, 4-block third quarter, getting under the skin of the Jazz, and a terrible shooting night for Utah. For the Blazers to win that game, I think they ended up winning by 5, 109-104. And I don't see all those things breaking the Blazers' way again. The game's at home. Portland tends to defend their home court very well, but we've already seen Utah come in and dominate Portland here. Gave them their worst loss in about a decade. And so I don't think Nurkic is going to be as dominant. I don't think the Jazz are going to shoot 21% from 3 again.
That's pretty bad.
So I'm going to go with the Jazz to beat Portland, and Portland has a 2-1 week.
They're going 3-0 this week, guys.
Oh, man.
I'm playing prisoner of the moment, and before this past week, I would have said, no way are they beating the Jazz. They were owned in the first two meetings.
No.
They weren't even close. But after seeing that, I think that it's psychological as well, that, hey, we can beat this team. And also, I just like the way the Blazers play at home. I just think they're a different
too.
team at home.
Yeah, I'm in the same way. I'm gonna pick the Blazers to beat the Jazz. You make excellent points, and
yep.
I'm not gonna argue with any of your points. For me, it's the Blazers are 20-7 at home. The Jazz are 500 on the road.
Which is pretty good.
That's good on the road. Yeah, that's not bad. They're one of, I think, like 8 teams that have a positive net rating on the road. However, their defense doesn't change home or road. Per 100 possessions, they allow 104.7 points at home and 104.6 on the road. So you're going to get Jazz defense no matter where you're playing them. The difference is in the offense. Okay, they score 110.3 points per 100 possessions at home and only 105.4 on the road, which is a very bad offensive rating. So I think that the Blazers, I know that they got beat by 30 at home by the Jazz earlier this season, and the Christmas night game was stupid, but the Blazers are a really good team at home. I think they're a better team at home than the Jazz are on the road, and they're going to be rested. It's not a back-to-back or anything weird like that, so I'm going to pick the Blazers to beat the Jazz at home. And that's an important game, too, for the Blazers. I think it's
I'm
it's
glad you
important
brought that
for
up.
both teams.
Yes.
If the Jazz win the tiebreaker against the Blazers, that's really big for them because it's an outright tiebreaker.
Yeah.
If the Blazers win, then it's tied, so it's not an outright tiebreaker, but at least they don't lose the tiebreaker.
Like, I think of the Jazz, I think of the Nuggets, just
Yeah.
certain series within the
Oklahoma
West.
City.
Oklahoma City.
Those
like,
teams that are all going to be right there packed
Yes.
together at the end of the season, and those tiebreakers, just like last season, are going
I'm
to
glad
matter.
you brought that up. I think that's key as well.
One thing that gives me confidence the Jazz could come in and beat Portland also is they bounced back and beat Denver after losing.
But where did they win?
Yeah, they won at home, but they also scored 120 in the Moda Center the only time they've played here so far. So
I know.
You know what time it is, as Damian Lillard would say.
I know what time it is. It is time for our favorite part of the podcast every week, Rip It! And our favorite producer and the host of Rip It, Max Barr. This might be my favorite one I've ever done for story time.
That's
Max
good.
Barr
Oh boy.
is the Andy Matheson of the 3-on-3 podcast.
definitely not aware of Andy Matheson.
Raise your hand if you know who Andy Matheson is.
This is bad for a podcast.
For those who are listening, not a single person raise their hand. This story is actually about Lakers center JaVale McGee.
Uh-oh.
So there's one time in 2012, JaVale was not a member of the Lakers at that time, but he invited 10 of his Twitter followers to have a burrito party with him at Chipotle.
Fantastic.
The only problem, only one of the 10 fans actually showed up.
Oh,
So the fan that showed up was Andy Matheson. So Matheson just gets to hang out one-on-one with JaVale McGee at Chipotle, enjoy a free burrito. McGee gave him the other 9 burritos
Nice.
to take home. So,
How do you not show up for that?
well, there's a little story. So, JaVale McGee, he put that out on Twitter. He's like, the first 10 of my Twitter followers to show up to Chipotle, you can have lunch with me. But he only gave him 5 minutes notice, so only one person showed up. But still pretty funny that he said he invited 10 people and one
That's
person
great.
shows up. Andy Matheson, he gets credit here because he showed up. He was on the ball. He was on point. Max Barr always shows up. He's always on the ball. He's always on point. He's our favorite producer. He's the host of Rip It. Take it away, Max.
Here.
and he's blessed by the bass guy.
Boy, you
Yeah,
must
he
have been
is.
really hurting for stories this week.
I
Andy
looked up
Matheson.
funniest NBA story ever, and that one
That is a great
on
story.
the list.
That
so.
was.
I'm honored, guys. It's great to be back with another week of Rip It. And we're coming off yet another championship for Orlando Sanchez.
Thank you.
I think he has 4. I think it's 4.
No
2,
matter how
and
many he
0.
has, let's find out
Love
if the greatest Rip It player of all time
I didn't feel good.
added another championship to his resume
I
this
didn't
week.
feel
You
good about my
just call him the
performance last
GOAT of Rip It?
That's subject to change.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
right now, today,
Yeah.
he is the Rip It
Okay.
GOAT.
Who's the woe of Rip It?
Oh, boy. Oh, man. Oh, the hits keep coming.
Sorry.
This is your week, man. This is your week.
Sad face.
This is your week.
All right, let's quickly recap last week. Blazers versus Pelicans. The question was, which player will score the most points? Yusuf Nurkic, Pelicans forward Julius Randle, or Pelicans forward Nikola Mirotic? Jared, you guessed Julius Randle. Orlando, you guessed
No, I don't think it
Mirotic.
was.
And Nate, you guessed Yusuf Nurkic.
Yeah.
Nurkic with 15 points.
Nice.
Mirotic, 13.
Oh.
Julius Randle, 19
Yes.
Oh,
points.
no.
I thought I lost. I thought Nurkic would have had that.
Oh.
Randall's getting buckets lately.
Jared on the board. Next question, same game. This was an over-under. Total points in the game for Anthony Davis. I put the number at 34.5. Nate, you and Jared said under. Orlando, you said that's a lot. I'll go over.
That was funny. I remember that.
The answer was under.
Yeah.
He,
we
sco-
go.
he
On the
scored
board,
27
baby.
points. But Orlando, you really won that question with your with your great
answer.
quote. Yes.
That's why you're the GOAT, man.
Yep.
Blazers at Jazz. The question was, which player will finish with more assists? Evan Turner, Donovan Mitchell, or Yusuf triple-double Nurkic? Jared, you guessed Nurkic.
Nice.
Orlando, you went with Evan Turner, your go-to guy.
Yeah,
That's
you're
my boy,
bringing
man.
it the old strategy there.
And Nate, you went with Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
Turner,
Thank you.
4 assists.
Good.
Donovan Mitchell with 5.
Good.
Yusuf Nurkic, 7.
No! Wow!
Nurk did it!
Bravo.
If only the Jazz could have made some shots.
Yeah,
Man.
that's a good point.
Blazers at Thunder. The question was, which team will shoot a better field goal percentage in the game? Jared, you guessed the Blazers. Orlando and Nate, you guessed the Thunder. The Blazers shot 45.3%. Thunder, 50.6%.
Yeah.
On the board.
You didn't
got
get
one.
shut
You
out.
got one.
That's the
You
only
didn't
thing
get
that matters.
shut
No shutouts, baby.
Is there one more here?
There's one more.
Oh, I
bonus.
can tie. I can still
Bonus.
tie.
It's
I've
the-
tied before. I can't get solo.
It's the wild card question, and it was all about Myers-Leonard.
Oh,
Remember this?
Oh, no.
I love Myers.
Yeah, we gave him props.
So
I don't think this is good.
the question was, in the month of January, he's averaging 6 points per game, and it was an over-under total points for Myers in the games against New Orleans, Utah, and Oklahoma City. 18.5 was the over-under for total
Man,
points.
I don't know how many he scored.
Jared, you and Nate guessed over.
Oh,
Orlando, you went under.
I think you're right.
Against the Pelicans, Myers scored 5 points,
He's in the hunt still.
a little under his average. He put up 8 against the Jazz, including those 2
13?
big three-pointers.
That's right.
Oh,
And against the
13.
Thunder, Myers scored 9 points.
Yeah, baby!
Myers came through with the over.
So we have a
Jared, no,
Oh,
Jared
okay.
won out.
So going with the totals, we have Orlando, you finished with 1.
Good job, Orlando.
Way to
I'll
go,
take it.
goat.
I'll take it.
No
Good job.
shame.
I'll take it.
Nate, 3 out of 5. Very
Nate,
good.
that is a really
That has
good
to
Very
be your
good
best
score.
performance.
That is
Good
like
job,
tied
Nate.
for
That's
my
tied
best.
done
for
it
your
before,
best.
yeah.
I've done
Okay,
3.
you've been here before.
Jared, we had to know this was going to happen. It was your birthday.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
4 out of 5. You had the birthday
Well done.
mojo. Congratulations.
One of the greatest performances.
What a way to start the 40s, man.
Yeah.
It all goes downhill after that.
I'm just honored to be in the same competition as such wonderful competitors. I'm a humble winner.
Wow.
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 That brings a tear to my eye.
That was nice.
Thanks.
All right, let's move ahead
I
to
would
this
say
week.
something else if we weren't recording a podcast.
I thought you were going to say I would say something else if I won. I'm like,
Well, that too.
we'll see
Okay,
if that ever happens.
let's go here.
No.
Wait, I'm supposed to be humble. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's gonna be sad when the Jazz beat the Blazers on Wednesday.
Blazers
yeah,
at
would be.
Suns. The Suns have 3 players who are going to be out tonight, including their best 2 centers, DeAndre Ayton and Rashawn Holmes. Over-under total points scored for Yusuf Nurkic in the game against the Suns. And that number is 23.5. Over-under. We'll start with Jared.
I will go under.
Orlando?
Yeah, I'm going under. That's a big number for Nurk.
Okay, Nate?
Screw you both. Over.
Yeah.
All right.
Over, babies.
All right. I like it. Let's
Yep,
move on to
I
the
like it as
Hawks
well.
game. The question is, which player will finish with more assists? Damian Lillard or Hawks rookie Trae Young? Orlando, we'll start with you.
Trae Young passes the ball.
He averages
He actually
7
does.
assists per game,
Holy crap.
which is 1 more than Damian Lillard.
Holy smokes.
I'm gonna take Young.
All right, Nate,
Lillard.
I
Jared.
will also take Young.
Man,
Okay.
you might as well just wrap this Rip It championship up for me next week. I just
could be
those
your week.
2
Wow.
questions. One
Wow.
right
This could
there.
be your week.
I would like to see you win for once.
All right, Blazers versus
Be an
Jazz.
inspiration.
You're on a roll.
We've got 2 questions for this game. The first one is, which team will make more 3-pointers? Blazers or Jazz? Jared, what do you think?
Blazers.
Orlando?
Blazers, baby.
Oh, just come on, put a bow on it. The Jazz. Come
All right,
on.
all right.
Ooh, I love this.
Nate always picks against the Blazers in this game.
I picked the Blazers in the first 2.
Yeah.
We'll see who he picks for this question. Which role player will score the most points in the game? Utah's Joe Ingles, Al-Farouq Aminu, Evan Turner, or Utah's Derek Favors?
Got 4 choices. Holy smokes.
Which player will score the most points? We'll start with Nate.
Ingles, he's my man. He didn't show up last time. Gonna show out.
All right. Jared, what do you think?
Who are the other 3 other than Ingles?
Aminu, Turner, or Derek Favors?
I'll go with Aminu.
Aminu, okay. Orlando?
I've got my heart set on Ingles.
Yeah, that's right.
I wanted to be a contrarian, but
I just swayed the goat over to my side.
Wow.
Notice that?
Wow.
Ingles was in my head to start, but
Okay, let's move on to the wild card question of the week. Yusuf Nurkic is averaging 4.3 assists per game in January.
wow.
Now, if you look at his last 5 games, that number is 5.6 assists per game.
Triple double.
Over under total assists in the next 3 games for Yusuf Nurkic. 17.5. We got the Suns, the Hawks, and the Jazz. Over under 17.5 assists. What do you think, Orlando?
I'm going under. I don't see Nurk getting the minutes.
Okay. Nate, what do you think?
I'm also going to go under.
Jared?
I'm also going to go under because I noticed something in the OKC game that other teams might pick up on. They had defenders dropping back against Nurkic to take away the backdoor
Give up the mid-range
pass.
Yeah.
So I think Nurkic's assist numbers could go down a little bit going forward.
All right, we'll have to monitor
Yeah.
that.
Wow.
That's it. Another game of Rip It.
This is
Well done.
I
In the
can't,
books.
Dude, I feel good about next week. I feel it's my time.
I feel good for you too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I always like to root for the underdog, so
Oh, boy.
Is that why you're a Trailblazers fan?
Oh, man.
Probably.
Let's end this. Let's bring it.
Well done, Max. Well done. I'm going to listen to my good friend. Make sure to give us those 5-star reviews. Subscribe to the podcast. We'll be back and better than ever next week. Thank you guys again for joining us for KGW's 3-on-3 Blazers. We are out.